Hi everybody, welcome back to my little YouTube channel. My name's Amanda, I'm a diagnosed autistic adult and I talk on this channel about everything to do with autism from my point of view, and hopefully it'll help you along the way. So if you don't know what autism is a neurodevelopmental condition. It's a genetic condition that affects the way we see the world, the way we hear the world, the way we interact with the world, and the way we interact and communicate with other people around us. It is genetic, there's no cure for autism, so we're born with it and we have it our entire existence. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about autistic masking from my point of view, and some of the common reasons why autistic people might feel it necessary to mask. Masking is otherwise known as camouflaging or otherwise hiding our autistic traits. And we do that to try and come across as being neurotypical or not having autism. So if you are interested in hearing and learning more about autistic masking, stay tuned. So what is autistic masking? Like I've just said previously, autistic masking is otherwise known as autistic camouflaging. And you know, you've probably heard before the term, the saying camouflaging, that if I was to go into a rainforest and I was to paint my face green and put some mud around me, I'd blend in essentially, effectively, hopefully, in my environment. And hopefully then I wouldn't be spotted by predators that are there to harm me. So autistic masking or autistic camouflaging is exactly that. It's where, for example, an autistic person will go out into a social setting or an employment setting or an educational setting or family setting around friends and family, for example, and will put this persona on, this fake persona. Fake it till you make it is probably what you know the saying by, and it's where we intentionally and purposefully try and change ourselves in order to fit in with the world around us. So what can autistic masking look like? Now, autistic masking can be different for every single autistic person, and indeed it's not just autistic people that mask or camouflage or fake it till we make it. Everybody in the world, we all do it to some extent. We all go into work in the morning and we meet our colleagues or co-workers or friends or family, for example in social settings and group gatherings, and we all ask the question, how are you doing? The weather's nice today, you look nice, and we all fake our way through life to some extent. Some do it more effectively than others, and males and females, or however you'd identify, everybody in society can mask and put on this fake persona in order to get through our day-to-day existence. But autistic people can be incredibly good at masking, and that is because it's a learned thing. And I can only sort of speak from my own experience that, I mean, I worked in the National Health Service in the UK. That's the biggest health organisation, government-run health organisation that I worked for nearly 20 years. And in order for me to progress and get that far and keep my job and build my way up and get promoted in that position of employment, I had to put this fake persona on, because unfortunately a lot of people don't understand autism or they don't understand autistic traits. And so if we was to withdraw into ourselves, or we was to be quiet and prefer non-mingling, for example, a lot of the time that usually would go against us. I can only speak from my own experience. It might be different for other people, and different employers are different, obviously, so don't judge me when I say that. But autistic people, in order to do those things that I've just said, we often put on this fake smile, or we'll often change our voice type, or we'll change our hairstyle, for example, or we'll change our clothes, and we change our overall identity in order to fit in better with the world around us. Now, the only downside to doing this, the only problem with having to consistently change ourselves, having to consistently deny our own reality as autistic people, having to put this act on so that we're not able to effectively embrace our true selves, our true identities as autistic people, is it's incredibly draining, and it can often lead to an uptick or an increase in autistic meltdowns. A meltdown is this intense response, an emotional response to triggers or a trigger, and it can often build up over time, and things like masking, which are incredibly draining to our energy, can build up and build up and build up until it just results in this meltdown or this shutdown, and it depletes our autistic battery. You know yourself, if you're having to put an act on or a persona, say for example you go on a date, we all do it. we all put this persona on. We try and be our best selves, if you could understand what I mean by that. And autistic people having to do that constantly face extreme tiredness, because we can only do it for so long until our battery completely wears out, and it ends up usually resulting in burnout or a shutdown. Autistic masking is particularly common in autistic females, and that's why it can be incredibly difficult for doctors and nurses and healthcare practitioners and even psychologists and psychiatrists sometimes to pick up and diagnose that autistic female coming to the appointment has indeed got autism, because we can be incredibly good at fitting in, especially with other females in the social circle, and that's because we do something called copy and paste. So we'll effectively look at another female, for example, and we'll see that this person is popular, she's popular among the group of other people, so we effectively copy them, copy and paste, that's where that comes into it, in the hopes that if we copy that person, then we can also be successful and popular like they are. And so as a result of that, if an autistic female goes for an appointment for an autism diagnosis, for instance, it can be incredibly challenging for the psychologist, the psychiatrist, the neurodevelopmental team, the doctors, the nurses, the hospital setting, the CAMS centre, for example, to pick up that that person has indeed got autism. And as a result of that, we can often be misdiagnosed with other medical conditions like anxiety, like social anxiety disorders or generalized anxiety disorders, or even depression and other mental health problems. So why would an autistic person want to change themselves, and why would we want to put this persona on, or this camouflage, to hide our true and authentic personalities, to try and hide our true and authentic selves? And that can be due to employment settings, so the feel that we need to fit in, the feel that we need to put this act on in order to get promoted in employment, for example. It could be in education, that you're wanting to mingle and fit in with other students around you. It could be that you're wanting to mingle and fit in with a social circle. It could be to feel like you're needing to hide your autistic traits from family and friends. It usually stems from feeling like we don't fit in. Autistic people will often describe ourselves as feeling alien, like alien beings on from another planet, and we've just been plonked on this planet with no instructions, and we're just left to do our own thing. And so as a result of that, the world itself can feel incredibly confusing to us. The communication side of it, the social side of it, the verbal, the non-verbal, bright lights, sensory triggers such as loud noises as well. Everything can just feel incredibly alien to us as autistic people. And so we often feel this innate desire to change and act more human, if you bear with me with that. I know it sounds really weird, but just bear with me with that. But we often feel this innate desire to change our true and authentic selves in order to fit in with the world around us and be accepted by others. So what are some of the consequences of long-term autistic masking? Because I know myself, having worked in the NHS, like I've just previously said, for nearly 20 years, and I still work in a healthcare profession now, but I've got my own business, which has been so much better for my mental health. And indeed, my patients now know me, so I no longer have to really mask or camouflage my autistic traits, although I do to some extent, obviously trying to act as professional as possible and still going over the same conversation over and over again, and sort of parroting off the same sort of the weather's nice, you look nice, and all that sort of scenario that we all do in our daily lives towards other people. But some of the long-term effects can be autistic meltdowns. It can be really tiring and draining for autistic people to continuously put this persona on, this mask, this acting, and it can lead to fatigue and exhaustion. So we tend to have this uptake in autistic meltdowns where some people can withdraw to bed, for example, and just need alone time. It can be crying. Autistic meltdowns can be different to different people. I do have a video on my channel about autistic meltdowns, check it out, but I will do a more in-depth video about autistic meltdowns. So it's incredibly draining for our autistic battery, and we can only act for so long until we hit complete burnout. Another consequence of constantly camouflaging or changing in order to adapt to our environment around us is the fact that we feel misplaced on a planet where we already feel like we don't belong anyway, but it further makes us feel more alienated from other people because we're consistently having to hide our true identities. And the fear of letting our guard down and being ourselves in front of other people, family, friends, employers, co-workers, for example, can just be so much that even when healthcare providers tell us, you know, when you've been diagnosed with autism, for example, that now's the time for you to embrace your true selves, we often don't do that because we're still feeling like other people around us won't understand about autism and they won't understand about autistic masking. And the last thing I'm going to end on is the fact that I'm 41 years old and I camouflage my autistic traits every single day, especially in social situations, in situations that I'm not prepared for at all, and especially in situations that throw me off guard, so spontaneous, unplanned situations. And although healthcare providers and doctors will tell you to embrace your true identity, I do think it's really difficult to do that, especially in adulthood, if you've been masking or camouflaging your autism for so long, because it's just really difficult to switch off from that persona that you've created for yourself, to try and hide your autism or camouflage it from other people. And I think over time, autistic masking, it sort of becomes part of us. Leave a comment below. Do you know what I mean by that? It's really difficult for me to switch off my autistic masking. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this little video. If you have, please consider hitting like, commenting and subscribing, and I shall see you next time for my next vlog. Bye!